just there in front of us. Morning all.
What's the optimum size for a pride of lions? And they reckon that the optimum size from a hunting success and sufficient food is about 5 lions.
Is it?
Yeah, and when it gets to more than that, then it's more difficult to feed the whole pride. But on average, from research that's been done across...
So I don't know if anybody can see these lions.
It's about 12.
Maybe you can help me identify
So
them.
the debate that's going on in
chasing a
circles now is
herd of buffalo this morning, probably missing.
Related to hunting success.
And it looks like they're settling in for the day. I suspect this mist will lift fairly soon, and they will then just go and rest in the shade. They will go and rest in the shade and do what lions do best, which is nothing.
I would say he's between like 2 or 3 years old.
There's a young male there we can see who's probably about 3 years old.
Does he know it's coming, or is he just doing
I don't think he knows what's coming.
If one's going to come and seek you out and earn your own living.
Yeah, and so the gene dispersal is through the males. So the males, he'll get kicked out and get chased into a neighbouring lion's territory.
Perhaps somebody can send through some information on this pride for me. If any of you know the history or you've seen them, you can tell me what's going on with them and who they are.
For a single male to take over a territory, that's very unusual. So what will probably happen, if he's lucky, is he'll find another male in the same predicament that's also been kicked out, that's also alone.
Oh yes, I need to tell you that too. It's hashtag SafariLIVE for Twitter, and the email address is...
Yes, that's right. So because they are being chased all the time...
questions@wildearth.tv.
He's going to end up establishing his territory more than likely far away.
Apparently the pride dynamics here are changing, where that young male is likely to be booted out fairly soon by 2 much larger adults who've come into the area. Unfortunately, fairly standard practice for lions, but he's now big enough to look after himself, so he'll be okay. As far as I'm aware, there aren't any small cubs here, and as I'm sure you all know, infanticide is a large part of lion behavior, and big males coming into an area like this will normally kill cubs that are below a year old, but I don't see any youngsters that age at the moment.
Craig,
Do you need me to move? Do you need me to move? Do you need me to move? Are you fine? Okay. Just talking to another game drive vehicle that has been following these lines through the bush this morning. It's a fantastic way to start doing this exciting new thing, Game Drive Live. As the mists lift. Just like I'm sure some of you have got house cats, you can see the lioness in front of us just cleaning herself there. Either that or she's got a thorn in her foot, which is quite possible.
Can you hear me?
Imagine walking through here barefoot, but like Mark.
You can send us the finder's fee in the post.
And then the story that Ian's talking about, synchronization. With synchronization. So what happens is, the purpose of the males is obviously to reproduce, but also to protect the territory, to ensure that their cubs survive, grow up and survive, or reach adulthood. If something happens along the way, and some bigger, stronger lion can jump.
That's the male there. Oh, there we go. Got a bit of action.
There's some little cubs in the pride. Those new lions will kill them. And then what happens is, within a month of the cubs being killed, the lionesses start coming.
So the lioness moving through there, you'll see them forging social bonds by just walking past 2 or 3 of the members of the pride, either rubbing heads together and then moving on, or lying down next to them. And they seem to do that to maintain the social bonds within the pride, so that they know or feel some kind of cohesion when they're hunting or when they're resting up there.
So he mates and then goes off thinking that he's produced and nothing happens.
That male looks like he's going to be a magnificent beast in a few years' time.
Be up to 3 cycles. So the purpose of that is to ensure that whatever male takes over the territory is going to hold on to the territory. It's a big enough, strong enough line. Because if she just mates with the first male that comes along, it may not be strong enough, and then other males chase her and kill the cubs again. So there needs to be, so take up to 6 months for everything to stabilize and new males to set themselves up to reproduce. And then
Blair on Twitter, thank you very much. I believe this is the Nkuma Pride. It's very exciting for me. I've never seen them before, and I believe there were lots of others who have correctly identified these lions. Well done to you all. Thanks very much for helping me out, and I hope that you'll continue to do that throughout the drive. Roads are new, bushes new, animals are new, everything's new.
So what happens in situations like that, which does happen sometimes, is that a lioness with very small cubs, let's say one produces cubs much later than the rest of the lionesses, she will actually leave the pride and rather live and hunt alone with the 3 little cubs and raise the cubs alone, because there's a better chance of survival than being.
Joanne from Arizona has informed me that there's a juvenile male and 7 lionesses or 7 other members of the pride, so that's probably the juvenile we're looking at there. That's the young male who I was speaking about, who is soon to get a rude awakening and be tossed out of his natal pride. Unlike with humans, where we have to look after our children ad infinitum, the lions tend to toss them out once they get to about 3 years old. And the reason for that is quite interesting. There are two reasons for it. The main one is to stop incest or inbreeding, because what happens with lions is that when they reach the age of the breeding age, they tend not to have any qualms about mating with kin. And so one of the big advantages to having the lions tossed out when they're 3 years old by strange males coming into an area is that they prevent that inbreeding from happening, and they keep the gene pool as deep as possible. The other reason is that often in a pride like this, if the males have been around, or the dominants have been around, here we go, got some action here. If the dominants have been around for more than 3 years, often there has been some inbreeding, and so the young cubs that are killed by males coming in, we often think of it from our anthropomorphic point of view as being very savage, but in actual fact it's protecting the gene pool from getting shallow through inbreeding.
Dominance display. So we have the thing with Bruce, and there was lions, and the one sort of seemed to mouth, and like Bruce said, it's a dominance display. But it looked as though it was more than a dominance display. And why?
And when he said, you say the male was mating with the female.
There was an argument, but it was male and female. It was kind of it wasn't like the proper mating, every few minutes.
But sometimes it also takes time for the estrus cycle to take place.
Miss Jin from Dallas, Texas, welcome to you. You're obviously a bit of an insomniac. Welcome. Nice to have you with us. You want to know how old is the average for a male to be tossed out of a pride? It's normally on their reaching sexual maturity, which is probably between 2.5 and 3 years. Now, sexual maturity for lion is 2.5 and 3 years, but that's not when they get to their biggest. Their optimum size is probably between 6 and 8 years. 8 years they'll start to lose muscle mass slightly, but 6-year-old lion, 6-7-year-old lion is a big size male. I mean, he's going to be at his maximum mass then, and up to 8. So, but between 2.5 and 3, if there are other males in the area, or if there are still if his father is in the pride, he will be thrown out then. I hope that answers your question, Miss Jin. Beautiful pictures there of them moving through the mist. Classic lion shots.
Yeah, especially this time, yeah.
So which one trains in the hunting?
No, it's not the man.
So it's a lioness that has like, okay,
That would be the lioness experience that determines. So her life experience, the adult lioness's life experiences would probably determine some of those specialities.
So does this pride have a specialty? There's a very interesting female agronomist.
Marianne in Boston wants to know, is it possible that lionesses might kill their own cubs? Marianne, yes, it's possible. I wouldn't say it's typical lion behavior. I have certainly seen it happen, and where the female will actually eat her own cubs. So I've not seen her physically kill them, but if there is a food shortage, or she's for some reason stops lactating because she can't eat, she will either leave them to their fate, or she might kill them. It would be abhorrent behavior. It would be very unusual behavior for her to actually kill them, not so much to eat them. And the reason for that is obviously one doesn't want to, in times of food shortage, you don't want to waste nutrients that might be there. And secondly, we often think of lions or wild animals as being sort of the kind of creature that will protect their young to the death. And that doesn't make a great deal of sense from an evolutionary point of view, because an adult female who protects her young to the point that she is injured negates her ability to then breed further. And even if the cubs survive, whatever trauma it is that she's had to defend them from, they won't survive to adulthood without her. So, to answer your question, it would be abhorrent behavior for her to kill them, but not unusual for her to eat them should they die from starvation or if they were killed by some other animal. I hope that answers your question, Marianne. Very nice view there of the back of the lion's ears, that black patch. They're the only cats that I know of that have that black patch. And what's interesting is that they're also the only communally hunting cats. And we think that might have something, that black patch at the back of the ears might have something to do with to be a following mechanism of some sort when they're hunting through this bush. And you can see how difficult it would be to see that tawny-coloured animal in this tawny-coloured bush. But now look at that lion. I don't know if you can see that lion has just stood up. Yes, there you go. You can see how obvious that black patch is as she walks. Same with the tip of the tail. There's not a lot of that deep black colour in the bush out here. And so that's actually, that's a very nice example. You can see as she moves there, the black tip to her tail and the black back to her ears are the most obvious features of her in this. And as you can see, as she's gone out of shot there, you can see how perfectly camouflaged the lion's tawny color is to this winter vegetation.
I do have another station also standing here waiting.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm gonna also pull out.
Just come over Gary Dam onto that road towards Gary Kaplan, and then just look north. Find it to
Battle of the Sexes.
Thank you all for your kind words of welcome. It's very good to be here, and it's very nice to be back in the bush again. I've just come back from a short stint in Johannesburg, which is very different, obviously, from what you can see here in front of you. Thanks very much for all your welcomes. Jimmerlin in Oklahoma. I hope I've got your name pronunciation correct. Jimmerlin would like to know, what are the sort of noticeable features or problems that occur with inbreeding in lions? Sometimes for a generation or two there aren't any noticeable differences, certainly far less than there would be in, say, human beings, for example. But eventually what happens is that disease resistance would diminish significantly, and you would also have possibly some sort of cognitive issues, and eventually, if the inbreeding became severe enough, you would also have physical effects such as you might have an extra digit or two, or faulty ears or faulty eyes or something like that. But mainly, the main thing for an animal out here, remember there's no medical care at all, is disease and parasite resistance. And those are the first things that will be compromised by animals that are too closely related, breeding with each other. That's why it's so important for animals such, for prides like this, and in fact it happens in a lot of the other cats, where unrelated males tend to come into an area and take over. So if we look at leopards, for example, the females of an area will often be loosely related. Female leopards will often set up territories next to their mothers, but their sons are often tossed out by the territorial male, and the territorial male will then be unrelated to the females of the area, and so that keeps the gene pool a bit deep. For a generation or two, sometimes there will be some inbreeding. So if we go back to the lions, the males that take over this pride, I know that there are two in the area that are starting to dominate here. It's unlikely that they are related to these females, not impossible, but unlikely, and so that keeps the gene pool wide. And the further there's the young male going now. I think he might be a little older than 3. He's definitely going to have some trouble when a big adult comes in here. There we go. You can see them. They like to lie close, especially if it's a bit cooler. So as I was saying, the more distantly related the breeding pair is, the greater the chance that their parasite and disease resistance will be higher, because they aren't related, they will have different suites of resistance to disease and parasites. I hope that answers your question. Very gingerly going here. The bush is quite thick, so we'll make a bit of noise, which I don't really want to do. But these lions, unlike some of their fragile cat cousins, tend not to be affected too much by the noise. They're so confident in their own ability to dominate the area and the situation. Go. Just make some space for the others.
Moving down at Holland 3 stations in the lock. Walter, Kirsty, and myself and Craig on approach.
You can see how, if you were wandering through here on foot, it would be pretty easy to trip over one of these lions without seeing them, perfectly camouflaged as they are.
Very cut line. Do you want me to give you a little bit more time, or can I slowly start making my way? Alright, thanks.
I think it's... Santa Monica has helpfully told me that this male is apparently struggling to leave home, like I'm sure many of the human males around these days, and he's been chased out apparently 2 or 3 times already by the Matimba male. Matimba means strength in Shangaan, so he's obviously not that strong. And apparently the Matimba male has been mating with these lionesses. So, yeah, you can never be absolutely sure with behavior as to what's going on. Angie in Ohio would like to know, will the dominant males eventually just accept him, or what would happen? Will they just keep chasing him away, or what will happen? Angie, there's no definitive answer to that question. It's unlikely that he will last, should the males eventually decide to get really aggressive with him, because he's now going to... See, what will happen is that he will get to an age where he will now start to try and mate with other members of the pride. And that's normally when he will either have a fight to the death, or he will leave. And normally he'll be much smaller. I haven't seen the Matimba males, but I'm assuming they're much bigger than him. If it comes down to a fight, he's going to lose quite badly. And then he would probably leave. I suspect that the males at the moment are probably not that aggressive with him because he hasn't tried to mate yet. I'm guessing here. I don't know that for sure. But sort of textbook lion behavior would be that they would come in and eventually chase him out. But the textbooks are proved wrong again and again. So yes, he might survive through his life with the pride. I think it's unlikely, though. I hope that answers your question, Andrew. Lisa Osborne, thank you for your question. Lisa wants to know, do the lions look well fed? From what I saw, they look fine. They don't look like they've just fed. They certainly look healthy, though. They were hunting this morning, though. They chased some buffalo and obviously missed. It's going to be difficult for them to... It was right outside our house as we were having our morning coffee. And it's just they're not skinny, so they're probably looking to eat, but they're not desperate. Difficult for them to kill buffalo with only one young male, but certainly not beyond their reach at all. Wait for this other vehicle to position, and then we might try another view, but it's going to be difficult in this condition.
Morning.
How's it?
Great.
James,
Nice.
How's it going?
How many did you count here? 8.
I haven't counted. Yeah. Okay, we're just going to cross over to Mark now to see how he's doing. We've got, I forgot to mention, of course, it's my first day. We've got Brian on camera. Brian is dressed for the North Pole today. And in final control we have Tara, who is something of a genius on computers. I met her yesterday. And obviously Brent, who will be drinking a lot of coffee probably at the moment. So we're going to go off to Mark now, and then we'll come back to the lions if anything happens here. Okay.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
One thing about this mist, and it's starting to fade, is the light, especially with the sun rising, and a really, Liam called it eerie. It is a bit eerie, especially this morning driving in the dark with the mist. We should be seeing quite a lot of vegetation beyond this first line of trees, but it's all shrouded in mist. And this little open area, I can't remember what type of grass this is. It could be a couple of different grasses, but the light coming through the grasses is quite amazing. I know there were grostis in there and some panicums. That is a funnel web spider. It's not anything like the Australian or Sydney funnel web from southeastern Australia. these are quite harmless funnel web spiders, and with this mist we get a lovely idea of what spider webs look like, because the droplets that form on even the thinnest and tiniest strands of silk are quite amazing. It reminds me that we've just passed something that I wanted to find for you elsewhere, but now that we're actually not too far from it, I'm going to go back shortly to get to see it. Of course, I could get another spider web. James is certainly lucky. His first drive out to be spending with Lion. I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's a great welcome for James. Nice to hear that the Goomas are back. That the young male was there. At least I think he was there. Not too far back. It's down here in the dip. Bear with me while we do an action replay. Looking at it as we were driving along. I've actually seen it twice this morning. The first time was just after we saw that elephant. And I was heading around to Kuetela Access Road and Aubrey's Road to see if we could find it again. And the others that probably with her. But they're still in this very big block. So I'm going to follow up on some tracks of a big bull that also might be around. This is a little bit odd, but it is interesting. Not as exciting as Lion. It's nice little distance. We do see some nice webs with this sun and this light and this mist. It's a similar kind of creature, but different. Where would be the best view? Look further back. In a milkberry tree just across from us. We'll get a different view with better light on it. The sun's gone behind the cloud now. Another spider that we have here is actually a communal spider. I nearly said commercial. That'll be the day. The spiders are selling their own silk. But that's a communal caterpillar, not the communal or social spider. And although it looks very similar to the social spider web, there are a couple of fundamental differences. And one of them is that these caterpillars, they are communal social caterpillar. I think they're limantrid caterpillars. They spin silk to protect themselves, and within that silk I heard an elephant. They're not far from us. Just heard something breaking a branch. Why we need to stop and listen every now and then and talk about caterpillars and spinning silk. But that particular web is full of little caterpillar droppings, and of course the spider's web, they keep it pretty clean because they need to feel the vibrations of insects, anything that moves within their web. It's just very low misty clouds brushing by the blue sky. Today, 3:58. I might be wrong, but 3:58. Footmans, the tussock moths. I'm going to have to look through because I'm not getting anything out of the Lamantridae. In terms of picture of the caterpillars that produce those big webs, those are the butterflies. Anyways, I'll find it, I hope, and they're the processionary caterpillars, but that's not who they are. So I'll have to look through it when I'm not with you live, when you go back to James. And I'm going to leave now because I'm not hearing these earlies. This is fresh dung here, which means they're still on their way, heading more or less west.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, the lions have, well, maybe you can't see from there. I've moved the vehicle around, so we're actually in the same place. The lions have not moved. You can see them. One youngster there looks to be about 18 months, maybe 13, 14 months old, is doing some cleaning there of her friends. It's also just reaffirming social bonds and just creating cohesion in the pride, which is obviously very helpful if they're hunting or if they're trying to defend a territory. Lovely light coming through now onto them. And while that might look quite gentle, if that tongue was to scrape over the skin of your arm, for example, it would probably take off quite a substantial layer. It would be like grinding your arm against a tar road. Now, that's probably about an 18-month-old. You saw the little pink nose there. The nose will go completely black normally by 6 years. So it's quite a nice way to age them. Also see quite nicely there, just catching the light, that stripe of white underneath the lion's eyes. A lot of nocturnal animals have some form of white marking on the face, which just helps reflect light into their eyes, we think. I mean, none of these things have been proven beyond a doubt, but that's the most plausible explanation for that white stripe there under the eyes, is that it reflects light into the eyes, and that helps obviously if you are mostly active in the dark. Quite apart from the fact that lions are possibly just lazy, which is not a very sort of biological explanation for why they sleep too much, or so much, not necessarily too much. A possible explanation for their lack of sort of explosive energy is that their diet is basically entirely protein-based, much like your house cats, or except if you feed a commercial food to your house cat, there'll be quite a lot of carbohydrate in it. But on a protein-driven diet like this, it's quite difficult for the body to manufacture energy. So while carbohydrates are certainly not the only way to get energy, fat is the other major way. The savanna antelope that we get out here, and in fact any of the animals out here, don't tend to lay down fat like, say, a cow would, which are often, grain-fed before slaughter. These animals, the antelope here and the buffalo and the giraffe, are very seldom have any fat in their bodies at all. And so when these lions feed on them, they're eating almost a diet entirely based in protein, and that's what their digestive systems are set up to do. And so for them not to sleep as much as they do is really quite difficult. You'll find that the carbohydrate-based animals, so the herbivores and the seed-eaters, the antelope, the squirrels, those sorts of animals tend to be, and the omnivores, tend to be a lot more active than the carnivores do. We've got a question from Donna in Niagara Falls in Canada. Hello, Donna. Probably a bit warmer here than where you are, although you're going into summer. Welcome. A question about sort of predator hierarchy. Are there any predators that lions need to watch out for? The answer is absolutely yes, other than other lions. Hyenas are the major sort of carnivore enemy of lions. There's a very sort of distinct predator hierarchy in these areas, and at the top of that hierarchy is lions, but sometimes the hyenas will pip the lions from the top of that predator hierarchy, and that is based generally on numbers. So I think the ratio, if I'm not mistaken, is about 3 or 4 adult hyenas to a lioness. Once the numbers are tipped in that sort of scale of 3 to 1, or over the ratio of 3 to 1, then hyenas will dominate and lions will have to watch out. A male lion, however, fully grown adult male lion, only really has other male lions to worry about. Virginia from Kentucky, as opposed to Kentucky from Virginia. A question about whether lions are subject to being endangered. I'm going to assume that you mean that as a species. If that's not the case, just send through another question and I'll try and answer it for you. Lions are certainly threatened. They're not on the red data list as endangered just yet, but they are threatened. There are only about, we're not sure, but we think about 20,000 left in the world. Now, when you think 20,000 sounds like quite a lot, but not when you think about, say, a suburb of Los Angeles or a suburb of London, which would have sometimes in excess of 200,000 people in it. And so in the entire world, we've only got about probably 20,000 left of these lions. So although they're not classified on the red data list as endangered yet, they are certainly threatened, and their numbers are dwindling. And it's certainly because they're an apex predator, fluctuations in their numbers create far greater ructions in the ecology of areas than some of the other less keystone species. So it's what we term keystone species, which means that should population numbers of lions collapse, there will be enormous other changes in all the other ecological dynamics of an area. Another keystone species, for example, is something like an elephant. In, I think, Syracuse. I'm not sure where that is. Sounds like an interesting place. I would like to know if the lions are lying together because it's chilly or because or for social bonding reasons. It's not actually cold anymore at all. So, no, they're definitely not lying together because of the temperature. The lions will normally lie in close proximity like this for social bonding, and even if it's really hot, they tend to be close by. If it gets very hot, they might split apart a bit, but often after a night out, often after a night out, sort of patrolling or hunting, they will lie together like this for a while. Injan Bob. Ninga charge tingalata hin. Minga charge tingala tahin. Morning. Gloria and Terry would like to know how many lions there are here. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that little sort of pile you've got to the right of your picture, and then to the left there are another 2 as far as I can tell. So it looks like 7 sort of members of the pride, and then the 1 male, who I think, as we discussed, that should be correct for the Nkohuma pride, if I'm understanding the helpful views from this morning. He's probably sitting down to his afternoon cup of tea, depending on where he lives. Jonathan, the coalitions in this area, he wants to know about coalitions and their sizes in this particular area and why they're so large. They're not always large. Certainly in the last few years in the Sabi Sands, there have been coalitions of sort of in 4 or 5 or 6 males. I think it's very much a very good question, but I think there's a lot of sort of random factor involved, so I'm not sure that it's necessarily a rule for this area. You'll probably find it has quite a lot to do with what they're hunting as youngsters. So as youngsters, young male lions will often hunt bigger prey like buffalo. And so a larger coalition makes that job a lot easier. It also makes it easier to take a territory. But what often happens with those large coalitions is that they split and fragment once the territory's been taken. Ooh, look at that beautiful light on the lioness as she rolls over. So, Jonathan, what will happen is that if a coalition of 6 people or 6 lions come into an area, they will dominate, say, the pride territories of 4 or 5 prides. But to maintain the cohesion of the 6 in the coalition over those 4 or 5 territories is almost impossible, because the amount of space that they have to patrol is so huge. So what will often happen then is that the coalition will split and into, say, 2 and 4 or 3 and 3, and when they meet up they'll be friendly, but they will spend less and less time with each other. The territory will almost be split between them, and that makes it a lot easier then for newer coalitions to come in and displace the existing ones. I hope that makes some sense. I'm not sure what you guys would like to do. I don't think these lions are going to be doing anything else for the rest of the day. And so I would suggest that we move on and see what else we can find. But if you'd like to stay with them, let us know. We did have a bit of Twitter banter, apparently, looking for a suitable collective noun for lions lying on the ground like that. And the consensus seems to be a regular carpet of lions, which I think is pretty good. So let us know if you'd like to stay or go. Remember, you can send through your questions or comments or insults to the new presenter at questions@wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag on Twitter, #SafariLIVE. Donna from Maine would like to know what the difference between a coalition and a bachelor herd is. Donna, biologically, we tend to use the term herd for non-carnivorous animals, mainly for antelope and grazers. And a coalition is normally only used for male predators. So you have a coalition of lions, and sometimes a coalition of male cheetah will form. Those are the only two that I know of where we'd use the term coalition. But essentially you wouldn't call a group of male lions a bachelor herd of lions, but you would use that term for the herbivore, so bachelor herd of impala or bachelor herd of kudu. I hope that answers your question, Donna. The consensus seems to be that we move on and see what else we can find. Mark at the moment has found some other little carnivores, and we're going to cross to him while we go, Brian and I go off and see what else we can find. Okay.
Well, from one of our biggest predators, in fact, the biggest land predator, the lion, to one of the smallest, not the smallest, but one of the smallest, a little colony of dwarf mongoose that have taken up an entire termite colony. And these little tunnels that they're poking their heads out, the little chimneys, are actually breather holes or chimneys from the termites that they probably modified, or they might just be using to hide. The rest of the colony I can see on the edge of a termite mound just off to my right. I might be in the way, but some of them sunning themselves. Others amongst a bunch of dead marulili branches. I guess they're foraging already. Good morning, children. Constantly alert, these little mongoose, all mongoose species, but particularly those that are communal. They have a very tight-knit family. There is only one breeding pair amongst the little colony. It's like the wild dog, in fact. An alpha male and an alpha female. There were some just on this termite mound, but I think it's time for them to, by the looks of things, to head off for the day. Doing their hunting, they forage for insects, they dig for grubs, for larvae, they'll catch lizards, they might even find small birds. Not very often, though, not for dwarf mongoose. They're not as avid a bird hunter as, say, their slightly bigger cousins, the slender mongoose. Bird we can hear in the background is one of the black-collared barbets. Complaining about something. I heard from one of the viewers that we have elephants on the Arathusa camera, or had, and that they've moved off. So we are on our way. I had to kind of give up on the ellies that we were seeing this morning because they're all, I can hear them and they are not moving very fast. They're all deep in that block between Vuyatela Access Road and Albury's Road and Gallagher Shortcut. I know exactly what you ladies are thinking of. I'll better not go any more forward. I think they're edging closer and closer to this bush area on the edge of the open area. It probably gets hot out here in the daytime, and it's safe enough for them to go into the denser tree line for the shade and for a different food source. Impala are quite broad, or their diet is quite a broad spectrum of diet, from leaves to grasses. They're not see, a lot of the herbivores are either grazers eating grass or browsers eating leaves, and there are not many animals that do both, that can adapt to changing conditions by changing their diet. A giraffe has become has adapted to and has become such a specialist browser that if there were no trees there would be no giraffe, because they couldn't really rely on grasses. So I'm bonding with this female and her little boy here. And an interesting action and interesting behavior, and you see quite a few of them will be doing it impala are these herd animals, so you'll find when most of them are eating, or all of them are eating, but sometimes when there's stuff to be done, like grooming, you might find they're all doing it together. There were others, but now they're all gone back to eating. But it's allo grooming. It's sort of, you groom me, I'll groom you. This must be mother and son, I'm guessing. She licks him. Well, it's not really licking, it's combing. They're combing with their lower incisors. Yes, for such a dainty and delicate little antelope, the rams have got quite a rough noise about them. Quite a rough call. Their rutting call. Just for some reason, he just had it in for her, for some reason, and chased her. And I think looks like he's aiming at something behind us. He's constantly on the lookout for other rams that want to come and take over or steal some of his ewes. Their lower incisors, their teeth have got almost like grooves, like little ridges, almost like serrations. No, serrations is not the right word, just grooves that help to comb through their own as well as their family members' fur or coat. An important area that needs to be kept clean is all around the neck and the head, and it is needed to have others do that for you, because the way that they feed, that is where a lot of the ticks will start, or a lot of parasites will get access to them behind the ears, in the ears, in the neck. Grooming becomes essential. It's essential to the health of the herd, not only in its social bonding by the act of grooming, but by keeping everybody healthy. Looks like that little one's sneezing. Almost hear it. Well, as Talina asking the question, I think, of what I've just been mentioning, is it true that they have grooves in their teeth to help with the grooming, to help? Yes, indeed, it is true. Can we leave you in peace, Mr. Impala? Bye, Impala. And they all looked up when I started. So we're going to hand over to James now, because something might be happening back at the lion sighting. Bye, Impala. And I'll see you when I'm on my way to Arathusa. We'll see what happens after that.
back, everyone. You can see just in front of the vehicle there are 3 buffalo bulls, and as I said earlier, we had an experience of hearing those lions that we saw just now attacking some buffalo this morning, and given the area, it's quite likely that they were after these 3. It's also not surprising that they didn't catch them, because these are 3 old experienced Dugger boys, or mud boys as we call them here. So they're 3 buffalo bulls who've left the herd. Be very experienced, very, very powerful animals, these. And without an adult male in that pride, they'd had a really difficult time catching them. So normally what would happen is that they'd be lying down like they are now, the 2 of them. But that 3rd one, as we arrived here, was snorting and very clearly distressed by something, and I suspect that has had quite a lot to do with the fact that they were being harassed by those lions in the misty pre-dawn light. You can see that old bull there scarred next to his eyes. He's been through many fights. You can see the way his horns have been worn away. Not an animal you want to tangle with if you have ill intent towards his person. You can see the horns on the back of that one there are the boss, which is that sort of helmeted part on the skull, has started to split apart slightly. You can see it's very worn from countless battles and where he's rubbed his head against branches and trees to mark territory and show dominance. Great suggestion from Cam in Virginia to go and see if we could find the buffalo. Proved a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So thanks for that, Cam. Great suggestion. Paul from Indiana would like to know, are there any tick-borne diseases in Africa? The answer, Paul, is yes, plenty. In this, we sort of have a blanket way of describing tick-borne diseases in this area, and we call it tick-bite fever. But there are variations of tick-bite fever. So in an area like this, if you get bitten once and you get sick, you will normally be immune to it. But if you go to a new area and are bitten by a tick there, you will also you'll get it again. The symptoms are not normally fatal. The disease just makes you feel like you've got a dreadful case of the flu. It's treated with antibiotics normally, and it's just very unpleasant, but not quite as bad as malaria, and certainly doesn't kill anything like the number of people that malaria does. So mosquitoes here are a much bigger danger to us. Tick-borne diseases in animals, the parasites that ticks introduce will cause biliary certainly in domestic animals. I think most of these sort of animals are, wild animals are fairly immune to the effects of ticks. But that said, they definitely, you can hear, I don't know if you can, how good the sound is at the moment, but just behind us we can hear a bird going psh, 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 and that is an oxpecker. And the oxpeckers are the birds that sit on animals like the buffalo and remove the ticks. And they have a very important role to to play in disease prevention. They don't eat the ticks because they are very kind to buffalo, but mainly because they like the blood that the ticks have sucked out of their host species. You'll definitely find that there are lots of ticks on those buffalo now. You can see that he's not happy. There's a vehicle coming along the road, and this buffalo is unusually unrelaxed. The other two are far more sort of chilled out, but I suspect that they will meander down to the dam, which is just off to our left. You can see he's very unhappy. See the shake of the head there and the snorting. Gloria on Twitter was just commenting on the size of these animals. She says they're 1,800 to 2,000 pounds. Here in South Africa, we've issued the imperial system along with the 20th century. And we are now, yes, a big buffalo bull will weigh up to 800 kilograms, which is enormous, which is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Gloria, about 2,000 pounds. And when you think about it, a black rhino, a small black rhino is about 1,000 kilograms, so 2,200 pounds, and that is. So you think about how big a black rhino looks compared with one of these animals. I mean, the buffalo is solid, powerful muscle. I don't know if you can still see him. There you can see him there. He's still very unhappy from his night of harassment from those lions. Are, in fact, white patches of hair or bare skin. They're actually bare skin. Their hair doesn't grow back white. It often just, on the scars, it just doesn't grow back. So you're seeing there that sort of grey skin of the animal. We're going to probably leave these buffalo just now, but I just want to wait for that poor one. That Tula from Finland would like to know how fast these buffalo are, given their great strength. But how quick are they? Tula from Finland. The buffalo will look fairly ungainly, but compared with, say, humans, they are very fast indeed. So if you look at, let's take Usain Bolt, who on an average day will run the 100 meters in 10 seconds. He's running that at an average of 36 kilometers per hour. I think a buffalo would probably leave Usain Bolt, certainly, maybe not off a standing start, but definitely off a running start in the dust. They are not slow, and certainly there are no humans that could outrun them, but they're definitely not as fast as something like a lion. So they rely on their strength and their numbers they'll only run as a panicked last resort from something like a lion. Normally they will turn to face them. All right, we're going to move slowly on from these buffalo. I'm going to try and head off around to the right there. I don't want to get in between them and stress that one out even further than he is stressed already. So we're just going to head off around to the right like that, down onto the road, and then we'll see what else we can see. Okay. Here for a little while and see what they do. See them sniffing the air there, just to see if they can pick up a scent. Their sense of smell is so important to them when ascertaining if there's danger. Certainly our human scent will be muffled by the smell of this vehicle and the fuel, but they'll pick up a whiff every so often, especially now. You can see they've just turned to us. The wind has just come from behind us into their noses. So they'll smell first and then look. Just had a question from Shanae on Twitter, as I was sort of going through how important the sense of smell is. Shanae would like to know if they would smell the lions at a distance. At the current distance, I suspect they probably would pick up the odd scent if the wind was blowing directly from the lions. Yes. Would it be very strong? Probably not very strong. Certainly you can imagine at night how important that sense of smell must be. All right, we're going to continue to try and maneuver around them. If you keep watching, we may just answer that question. Penny wants to know, in Texas, was there any chance that a buffalo would charge the vehicle? It is possible. The buffalo's first resort is always going to be to run away. So as long as the animal isn't cornered or doesn't feel cornered, they will normally move away. I didn't mean to make them move like that, so I wasn't very sensitive. But the reason they wouldn't normally move at that sort of distance to the vehicle, but it's because they've been harassed like they have, that they've decided to get off. So I've seen a buffalo charge a vehicle, but normally only when it's been cornered, and often when it's been cornered by a pride of lions or something like that, then they will bump a vehicle if they feel threatened. that you can see as we're driving along that seem to be losing their colour are mainly the dominant tree here called the red bush willow or Combretum aficulatum, and they're the trees that are starting to go yellow. We don't get those great swathes of red like you do in the northern hemisphere here in autumn. You normally just get the leaves will turn, some leaves will turn red, but mostly they just go yellow and drop off the trees. Deborah in Kentucky would like to know if I have a favourite animal. I don't think I do have a favourite animal necessarily. I'm a huge fan of rhino, and I'm also a huge fan of wild dogs like Brent. But I enjoy most of the animals out here. I don't necessarily have a favourite. I also enjoy elephants very much, like Mark does. This tree over here, it's also one of the Combretums or bush willows, and it's already lost its leaves. This is a large fruited bush willow. You can see it's got much bigger fruits. The fruits are four-winged. See the four beautiful wings there, really nice in this morning light. Probably heard enough from me for the next little while. Mark is exploring on Arethusa, and so we're going to cross over to him. Well. It seems that this is where the elephants have been, the ones that must have been at the dam. There's a lot of fresh branches that have been broken. And here's some fresh dung, because they've already come through here. And very hard ground to find tracks. See whether this is on the way to the dam or on the way back. Investigate a little bit further. Welcome back to the Jigger, by the way. We're on Arethusa and trying to find signs of a herd of elephants that were at Arethusa Dam some time ago, so they have moved off from there. And now it could be anywhere.
needs to decompose a lot first. It would probably be good to put in a compost heap to help compost, to help promote compost in a normal compost heap, so that a lot of the tannins and things can leach out of it and it can be broken down better. But it's, as it is, when it comes out of an elephant, it's still 70 to 75% of what went in. Good morning, madam and madam, two Lady Ellies with their babies. Hello. Pretty little child. See if we can go a little bit forward. Those youngsters are playing on an old, it could be an old knobthorn that died a long time ago. The other family groups coming up behind us. It'd be nice if I can turn around and see from the other side, from the eastern side, because it's getting quite bright now. Sorry, madam. I think I'm moving my engine at her, and I'm not. I'm just going to. Sorry, Liam, I know it's not ideal. So I just want to turn around while this other family comes out. And even more family groups coming out behind this one that's just crossed the road. So I think that we sit here quietly. Didn't even start counting. Sometimes my brain doesn't think in counting terms, but both females that we first saw, I think they've each got 2 calves. This cow looks like she's got, how many came across with her? 3?
Don't know, didn't count.
Yeah. 4 of them that came across now the road. That's 10 altogether already. Plus another family group I can see in the background. Way down the road, there's another this old mud pan that is here that they're probably going to be feeding around. We're going to have a look. Known as Matandaluka pan. The young bull walking on this thick worry. I don't think it was chasing them. I think it just arrived on the scene. Half of the herd is now off to the left. They seem to have calmed down finally. This is the first family group that we saw was actually now at the end of the train. I think this is the last one coming across now. Mr. Zelly.
Yeah, come in. Yeah, sorry, what?
Thanks. You having radio issues?
Yeah.
Yes.
Us too.
Morning, everybody.
We don't have a Northern Channel.
Nothing. Okay. Kahumas are near Gowrie Dam.
Okay, I'll be there this afternoon.
Okay. Anything here?
There were dogs at our Marty.
Okay.
They went into Shirley.
Anything on this Ngalam corns or that's here?
That's the Kumas from yesterday.
Really? That came over here?
No, they were at EP Open.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ridiculous. There was horseshoe, everything. Like, you can't believe where they walked yesterday. It was outrageous.
And there was Ingwim corns on Parallel.
I'm not sure.
I saw that coming across to find them, yeah.
Any shadows in?
And mail going out towards Triple M on Zebra.
Ah, cool.
Do you want to go past?
We are on our way to something.
Okay. Cheers, Sean. Sorry about that, folks. Just had to have an update from one of the Arathusa guys. They just don't have any radio comms at the moment. Oh, look, there's a giraffe with the Ellies. It's just an update also that you can send questions into questions@wildearth.tv or send a tweet, #SafariLIVE, if you would like. Interesting news that the wild dog came through here this morning by the sounds of things. Just touching past Arathusa Dam. I get sorry, Mr. Giraffe. I'm sorry, dude. You can calm down. It won't invade your safety space anymore. Very hot now, all of a sudden. Big male giraffe is very dark. Haven't seen a big bull for a while. And now the Ellies have all moved off sort of to the northwest all of a sudden. They were heading northeast, and now they're from the dam. They're kind of zigzagging, I guess, heading a little bit northwest now. Are you just going to stand and look at us, watching you, Mr. G? Gosh, he's a big boy. Very dark. I think I said that already. Looking off to where the elephants have gone. As you noticed, as I arrived, I got to a point where he felt uncomfortable with me coming closer, so I stopped, and as soon as I stopped, he stopped, and he's turned around, and he's established this as his comfort zone. And he can come closer to me. I think if I tried to go closer to him once again, he'd probably turn around and also walk a few feet back. But his world has just been invaded by a herd of elephants and a couple of vehicles. Look at him, such a magnificent boy. Wow. Let me move down the road a little bit. I knew that there were wild dogs that passed through the corner of Arathusa briefly and have headed south. And the lion tracks that I've just seen now are actually the Nkuhumas that were all this way on Arathusa. We're right in the middle of Arathusa. They even got to Elephant Plains open area. Hello, Mr. Giraffe. I'd like to stay with you, but you're heading deeper in. Let's decide to stop again. See if I can get a nice gap between the trees to look at him full height. Like that. Lion on those lion tracks because they are far away at the moment over the Gari. I wonder why their tracks seem to be coming up from Philemon's Cliff, because I would have thought they'd be in the north. I thought last time we heard where the Kurumas was on Torchwood of all places. Now they would have had to skirt the whole of Gari to come to be here yesterday, and then to go back to Gari. Gosh, it's like a very big loop, and somewhat out of their territory to come to Arathusa as far as this, and then to go into Elephant Plains. gazelles are going to come back out somewhere here. This road sort of does a big arc, and it might eventually bend around to where they're heading. There they are. They're almost parallel with us now, but they're on a trajectory that's bringing them closer to us. So we will get to see them again in a minute or so. Getting to be nice and open there too. A little bit further. Second windmill area. And I know that there are vulture nests in some of the trees down here in the drainage line. Probably where these elephants are headed is to this drainage line. And trying to time it that they're going to be here in this open for us. And yep, here they come. My favorite pastimes, if not my best. Just sitting with an entire herd of elephant walking by. Oops. these windmill pans has got water. I see a bunch of vultures up here. Waiting for thermals probably. That can go off to find carcasses, kills, scavenge, do what vultures do. But to get there, they need the thermals, the warm air currents that rise up off of the ground when it gets hot. Now, it's getting a bit thick for us. We're going to get back to the road and run parallel with these ellies until they come out because they're heading to a road. I'm just sneaking past. It's the only way I can get back to the road. Anna Marie sent it in a tweet. Wants to know if vultures raise their young. You know what? Vultures are here for a reason. And I've just found the reason. And the reason is a dead animal. It's weird that they are. Stashed away here. Sorry, brother. I'm just going to go. Now, I've been looking at the vultures and I've been looking at the elephant. And not on the ground. There could have been a predator here that might have just let us assault this impala. I need to have a closer look from this angle. Very young impala. And looks like it's got a claw mark on the rump. Ordinarily, I would investigate a bit further, go and see if I could find, but I'm not going to interfere right now. Predator, sure, leopard, most likely a leopard. Any other predator would not have left it. The fact that the vultures weren't on the ground tells me that the predator might be around here somewhere, the leopard. If it was a cheetah, it's a pretty hard terrain for a cheetah to hunt here. But if a cheetah has just killed it and it was chased off or it got frightened, the cheetah would probably be eating on it already. Branch in the road. Probably something we need to come back talk tonight. If I can get a message to Arathusa guides, I can get them to come and check on it as well. But for now, I'm just going to let the elephants go where they are going. I want to have a look at tracks on the road. Excuse me. You're coming in. going to do some investigating while I'm here. I need to pick a branch, put a branch in the road as a marker for the reclusa guys. I'm going to use the guarri bush. We use the guarri bush because it's probably the least likely plant to be left by the likes of an elephant or any other animal. So guarri branch is usually the best kind of branch to leave in the road. Guarri or silver cluster leaf. And then no leopard tracks here. So while I'm doing things like this, let's send you back to Juma and join James and Wendy, and I'll catch up with you in a little while. I'll see you in a short time.
We're just going back towards the lions now. Welcome back. We've been exploring around. The heat has built. As you can see, I'm no longer wearing my thick jersey. And we're just going to go and see if the lions have done anything else. It's highly unlikely, but we'll have a look. Just see them up in front of us there. The danger, of course, in this kind of heat is that you'll run one of them over because they don't want to move. There they are. I'm just going to go around to the other side. We might get a better view of them. There's a nice view of the male. Stop here for a little while. The male and this female seem to have some sort of a bond. They've been together the whole morning. But that's not to say that it's necessarily permanent. You can see now we had that question earlier about whether they were lying together for warmth or for sociability, and I said as the heat builds they may split apart a bit, and you can see that pride has fragmented a little. Very soporific atmosphere that's starting to build now. She's eating grass there, which is quite unusual. And as you probably know from your domestic animals, carnivores often eat sort of fibrous material just to line their guts because they don't have much fiber in the diet, obviously. We also noticed as we came back in here that the number of flies seems to have built to a fairly astonishing level, to the extent that Brian and I are being savaged, and I'm sure that's because the heat's built. We head into midwinter. We've had a few questions from Finland, Niagara Falls, New York, Maine. I mean, your midwinter, you certainly wouldn't be sitting out in your shirt sleeves like Brian and I are right now. You probably also wouldn't be looking at lions. Try and sneak around the side there and see if we can't get a nice view of that female eating her grass, grazing away. She's laying down now. Thank you, Gerda, on Twitter. She's just given us an update that these lions ate a juvenile hippo last week. Yes, they certainly haven't been eating a hippo this week, given the look of them. And that's very interesting that a pride of lions would do that, especially in this area where smaller prey items are available. So that's very interesting. Thanks, Gerda. Compare those little feet sticking in the air there with the feet on your domestic cat, you'll see that the design is almost identical, just a miniature version. Ears constantly twitching, fighting away the flies. This animal is quite restless for some reason. Coming over to say hi. Just reaffirming those social bonds, just a touch here and a touch there. Oh, this will be good. Strength in her her shoulders there. Flop. Oh, male is now itchy, having a little scratch. There he is. But unfortunately, the exertions of scratching have anesthetized him to further slumbers. You can see his little pink nose there. It'll start to go black now. By the time he's 6, will be almost entirely black. So I'm not sure if you can feel this through the streaming internet where you all sit, but the atmosphere here has just turned into a very sleepy one from this morning. Rena Cook would like to know, do lions have dew claws like domestic cats? Rena, lions absolutely have dew claws, and they're very crucial in the hunting process. And they're often the claw that stays the sharpest because it doesn't come into too much contact with the ground. And we'll try and zoom in on the dew claw, but you'll see it there. You can actually see it there on the you can see it on the right hind or the right front foot there that's lying on the ground there. On the inside, behind the pad, you can see a dark spot, and I think that's from where I'm sitting. That's probably where the dew claw is sheathed. Very sharp and very important during the hunting. I'm not sure if you can see that little dark spot on the inside of the right front. Or is it her right? I'm getting confused here. Yes, it would be her right. On her left front. On her left front. It's where the thumb would be. Rena, I hope that answers your question in a roundabout and convoluted way. Yes, they have dew claws. Sure how much you can hear from where you're sitting, but all around me the birds of the middle of the day are starting to call. Rattling cisticola, chin spot batis going. You can hear the fork-tailed drongos going, Cape glossy starlings. Cisticolas, there's a little group of them coming closer because they've seen these lions, so they're now alarming. Psh, 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 psh. Spot batis sitting in the tree. Right, we're going to cross over to Mark, just so that we can see what he's doing, and then we'll come back and say a final goodbye to this pride of sleep lions. Crossing to you, Mark.
Welcome back. I couldn't resist. I went back to have a look at that carcass. Doesn't seem to have been killed by a predator. There are 2 gashes on the rump, and Veer made a very interesting observation that it was perhaps the vultures that had started tearing at the skin. So I don't think it's a predator, but we might come back later. But for now, we're going to be going back to the lion until the end of drive. So I'm going to say thank you from my end. Thank you for being here with us this morning. To VM for camera work, my name is Mark, and I'll see you this afternoon about 3 o'clock Central African time when we continue our journey through the Sabi Sand Game Reserve. Welcome back. We're just
looking in the front of the car there's a beautiful blue color of a Cape glossy starling. You can see its orange eye. Very easily confused in this area with something called a greater blue-eared glossy starling, but I've heard this one calling, so I know what it is. You can hear them calling just around. It's a very soft sort of call. That wasn't a very good impression. It doesn't actually sound like that at all. Here in the background, a white-browed scrub robin going. Oh, and there was even a fish eagle going in the background there. The somewhat cliched sound of Africa, but still nice to hear. Donna seems to think that Brent is going to have some competition on the sound mimicry front of things from me. Well, thank you, Donna. That's very kind. It remains to be seen, I think. Starling in front if you wanted. We've had a question from Dance Anyway about a possible wound on one of the lions. I can see what she means on the lioness here in front of us. And a question related to whether it could be a TB lump that is draining. Dance Anyway, I couldn't answer that question. Safe to say that I've never seen a TB lump draining before. It's quite possible that that wound has been irritated by something, or that she spiked it on a thorn or something like that. I don't think it's possible to say at this distance whether it's TB or not, and whether that's a draining TB elbow. I'm not sure. You can see the flies are having a field day there, though. It's possible that if it is a TB elbow and it's bugged her, she may well have, bitten it and sort of injured it herself. A question from Wisconsin about why domestic cats have got slit pupils and these bigger cats seem to have round ones. And the answer to that is I have absolutely no idea, but I will make an attempt to find out and try and get back to you on the next drive. Sorry about that. Very interesting question. It must have something to do with the amount of light that is required and the environment in which they evolved. Ellen, my guess would be no. Lions wouldn't eat grass. Wouldn't eat grass for hunger, mainly because they don't have a digestive system that can extract nutrients from it. So, for example, if you were starving to death in an area like we're sitting right now, if you were to eat leaves, for example, your body would reject them. You would vomit, or you would your body would expel them in some way, because you don't have the digestive enzymes or digestive tract to handle that sort of nutrition. So a lion will probably eat grass, as I said, just for the fiber, not to try and extract some form of nutrition from it. They just simply don't have the gut biota or gut enzymes to be able to do that. Right, so we're going to wrap up now. It's been a very fantastic morning with you all. I'm not sure how many of you there have been, but possibly millions, possibly 10 or 12, hopefully a few more than that. Thanks for putting up with me on my first drive. My name is James Hendry. That's Hendry, Scottish versus English. And I've been in the bush for about 10 years, in and around this area, mainly working as a ranger and also with the local people around the game reserves, and that's been my speciality. So it's the first time I've been back in the hot seat, as it were, for a little while, and what a great way to start off. Thank you all for your welcomes. I believe there have been some kind words on Twitter, and thank you for your questions, which have been very interesting. I suspect these lions are going to spend the rest of the day doing precisely what they're doing now, and while not in the same place, I might go and do the same sort of thing after a healthy and hearty breakfast. Thanks to Brian and the control team, and Mark and Leon, wherever they are, exploring in this magnificent wilderness. And we will see you later in the afternoon from the 3.5 million hectares that is the Greater Kruger National Park. Have a great day.